I often dream about tsunamis. It's always the same. I'm standing on a broad bridge, somewhere in the middle, I think. I can't really tell, because the two ends are obscured by a thick fog. The pavement is cracked, a jagged nash running down the middle, threatening to split the bridge into two. I see cars here and there, shattered windshields, rusted metallic frames with dust covering them like tattered duvets. A salty breeze wafts through the air and pricks at my nostrils. Water gently crashes against the piers of the bridge. Everything around me looks old, like it's all barely holding on even as decay scrapes at every exposed edge. But despite all that, I still feel a comforting calmness that warms my heart. And then it changes. There is a creak, barely audible as something metallic sways in the wind and the fog dissipates. Out in the distance, a tremendous wall of water bears down on me. I am frozen in fear as I take in the immensity of it all. I am forced to reckon with the insignificance of my existence as the giant wave that thrust up into the cloud advances towards me with a soft murmur. The bridge begins to tremble as I gape in awe at the tremendous strength of nature. Marvel at its beauty before the tsunami shadow darkens my face and the wave crashes into me, ripping through the metal and concrete and snuffing out my life. I wake up with a start, my lumpy mattress soaked with my sweat and my heart going haywire in my chest. My therapist has repeatedly told me that these nightmares are symptomatic of my deep-seated fear of being alone, of being swept away by the tides of time. Alone. Forgotten. I can't disagree. After all, loneliness was the biggest reason why I chose to lie down in my bathtub that night, and to slide the sharpest knife I owned down my arm. The blood sprays out into the small pool of water, the color red spreading across the surface like wildfire. I concentrate on the sounds around me to try and block out the pain that makes my eyes wet. Water leaks out of the faucet and plinks against the smooth surface of the sink nearby. Wind dances on the trees outside, making the leaves rustle, and my breath becomes short and raspy as my eyelids begin to droop. I am fading. I wonder if I'll be alone in the afterlife as well. I blink and look around me. My eyes fall on the plain blue towel crumpled up on the floor to my left, soaking up blood and water. Wasn't that thing green? I find myself saying, but it feels wrong somehow, with the words making my jaw ache as they tumble out of my mouth. I sit up straight. I knew I had not spoken those words. Who said that? My mouth moves again. Me. Who are you? Me. Who are you? How did you move my mouth? I ask myself. What was happening here? It's my mouth. How did you move it? And how come I heard you say, what was happening here, without my mouth moving? It's my mouth. I've had it all my life. On the brink of death, and I'm speaking to myself? I snort. Looks like losing blood makes you hallucinate. Then what about that towel? What about it? It was green. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. I helped Mom pick it out. No, it's been blue all along. But, all right, please shut up. Let me think. That doesn't help much either, because I can now hear another set of thoughts buzzing around in my head. It's more annoying than anything, really, like an itch at the back of my neck that I can't scratch. I guess I should be more frightened, but considering that I was just about to end my life, such trivialities don't bother me nearly as much as they should. Not to mention that there is also a strange sense of familiarity and comfort associated with this other presence in my head. I shrug and decide to engage this other me in a conversation. We talk as I get up out of the bathtub, before examining the wound on my arm that has now closed up on its own, leaving a long, narrow scar behind that is already starting to scab over. I'm gazing at my arm in wonder when I find my legs moving without having consciously ordered them to do so. Therefore, I politely ask the other me to let me be in control as I glide to my bed. It doesn't take us long to come up with a reasonable hypothesis for what has happened. It is the changes the other me notices around us that convinces us he has jumped dimensions and arrived at a parallel reality. Changed patterns on t-shirts, tables placed on the other side of the room, all indicative of a sudden transformation in other me's reality who has left his body and come to occupy mine. But subtle differences aren't enough to create a divergence significant enough to mold a separate reality. And we notice that when the other me starts talking about recent conversations he had with relatives that, for me, had died years ago. We begin theorizing on how exactly the jump across dimensions occurred. It was the subtle act of suicide that allowed our minds to synchronize, like a knot being tied across two strings, making them intersect when they never would have done so, letting the other me into my world. Surprisingly, we adapted the changes quite well. Even the transition from I to we is smooth. Maybe it's because we are no longer alone, something we've craved for a very long time now. Companionship isn't the only benefit that comes with having two brains crammed into a single skull. We are now capable of doing things most humans find impossible. Can you move a hand in a clockwise direction while your foot on the same side moves anti-clockwise? Because we can. Write with both hands simultaneously? Read 2 books at the same time? Sleep and be awake all at once? Look at both corners of your eyes? We can do all that and more. It's utterly fascinating. Both of us are able to simultaneously exert control over our body. But the best part about all of this has nothing to do with my new abilities. You see, no one who hasn't experienced soul-crushing loneliness can ever really know the true worth of friendship. I feel a genuine happiness for the first time in my life as I begin to bounce ideas off my other self. Talk about our fears, our dreams, reminisce about the past, ever so slightly different, like 2 copies of a picture superimposed on each other, but one is almost imperceptibly tilted. I am saying this because I want you to understand that it is not hopelessness, but curiosity that makes me kill myself a second time. We argue long and hard about this. Will it work if we do it again? Or will we just die? Does the convergence need a specific set of conditions to be met? Is it worth the risk? Shouldn't we just use our enhanced brain power to build a better life for ourselves? And how do we go about this anyway? Should we recreate the exact same scene, or will any method of suicide work? Did slitting my wrist only work because it was long and drawn out? Will something abrupt, like a gunshot to the head, not produce the same results? We decide it is worth the risk. And so it is that 2 nights later we are lying in the bathtub again. This time with both fear and excitement churning our belly. Our senses are prepared this time. The knife hurts a little less. The leaves don't rustle as much, and the color of blood seems just a tad muted as death begins to embrace us once again. Did it work? I don't know. Can you hear anyone else? Oh my God. It worked! It really did, didn't it? There's 4 of us now. We decide to name ourselves numerically on the order of arrival into the body. 1, 2, 3, 4. It feels like there's a party going on in our head, but it doesn't feel crowded at all. It's like we are all in perfect resonance with each other. Everyone has their own space in our mind. No one is talked over. There's never any unnecessary noise, just complete and utter harmony. For the first time in my life, I feel truly at peace with myself. So of course, we do it again. And again. And again. And again. And again. Till there are 1,024 copies of ourselves residing in our brain, and the surface of the bathtub has cracked and eroded because of the repeated use of acidic cleaning supplies. We make sure to keep the knife sharp. An interesting thing we notice after a couple of convergences is that the number of minds in our brain always increase exponentially. If there are 16 of us easing into a bathtub at night, you can be sure that 32 will be there when we wake up. Not 17, or any number higher than 16 that isn't 32. But that's understandable. Only minds and bodies that are nearly identical copies of each other can cross over. The successful convergences force us to confront a terrifying truth. That there are potentially trillions of versions of ourselves in their own realities, all having been driven to the point of suicide with no one to love them or care for them. But hey, at least we'll always have each other. 733 argues. The rest of us agree. There is always a silver lining. Our life improves significantly with successive convergences. We exhibit an explosive growth and productivity, taking less than an hour to finish off work that would otherwise take weeks, dividing the tasks amongst ourselves of reading, processing, analyzing, and then using that information to solve complex problems. We begin working like a well-oiled machine, a supercomputer, if you will. Our efficiency at work becomes so high we have to actually bring it down a notch so as not to raise suspicions. We use our superior control over our body to learn martial arts. It takes us less than a year to earn black belts in 7 different art forms. Thankfully, our muscle memory keeps up with our brain power. Our social life improves. Suddenly, it's not so heart-pounding to go talk to that girl in the red dress at the bar when there are 1,023 of your friends backing you up. We get better at picking up cues, learning body language, reading someone's eyes. Every soft caress on the hand, every strand of hair that is brushed aside, every tilt of the neck is carefully observed. The data crunched and analyzed until an optimal response is achieved as the output. We get laid a lot. But surprisingly, long-term relationships are no longer our thing. Maybe it's because we are now operating on a higher plane of intellect, or maybe we just don't need love and companionship from an external source anymore. We make friends too, none that we would trust our lives with, but enough to have a good time with every now and then. Money is no longer a problem. The amount of information that we can process at once makes it very easy to game the stock markets. Turning a profit of millions from just $50,000 a day is easier than child's play. Of course, we keep a low profile. People who become millionaires overnight always attract unwanted attention. We are smarter than that, opening up multiple accounts under perfectly crafted fake identities. We are rich, obscenely so. It's understandable if you think that I, and yes, using singular pronouns is not a habit I've lost, and we can easily cycle through the desired pronouns, sound insufferable. See, the reason you've been told about our overwhelming intelligence is so that you can understand just how dangerous things have gotten, not just for us, but for all of you since our 11th time. We never could have anticipated the tsunami that was about to crash into our life. We follow our ritual perfectly. It's nighttime. Soft beams of moonlight filter through the window of the bathroom as the sharp edge of my trusted knife kisses my veins. One scar that has been perfectly opened up almost a dozen times before yawns and the blood comes flooding out. I close my eyes and lean back into the warm water. So far, so good. A terrible headache greets me as I wake up. That's new. I don't remember ever getting such a throbbing ache in my head before. Maybe it's because the number of minds being merged is significantly higher this time and my skull is taking some time to get used to it. I rapidly blink to clear my vision and find myself lying in bed. What the fuck? I jerk upright and scan my surroundings. I'm fully clothed, in a bedroom I don't seem to recognize. I take my phone out of the pocket of my jeans and see that more than 5 hours have passed since I cut myself. My brain explodes in a fury of activity. Where are we? Did the convergence happen? This seems like a motel room. Who brought us here? I don't think it did. There still seem to be only 1,024 of us here. Who brought us here? Was anyone in control while we were dying? A wave of no's follow. We can feel stress taking root in our heart. So we get 786 to slow down our heartbeat and begin taking stock of the situation. No one admits to bringing us here while we were dying, and we sense no more than 1,024 of us in here. Is one of us lying? A strange silence envelops our head as we begin to entertain that frightening notion. 971 cuts that short. Can't be possible. How can the rest of us black out while just one of us doesn't? Makes no sense. Then who? Maybe the convergence did work. We've searched every nook and cranny of our brain. There's only 1,024 here. Alright, then what? Let's retrace our steps and find exactly what we got here. I roll out of bed and exit the room before making my way to the reception. The girl at the counter blushes as she sees me. I flash her a warm smile and try and dig for information. From her, we find out that I am still in my town and that I checked in under a false name only about an hour ago. Where exactly was I for the rest of the time? Our car is parked right outside, and we quickly climb in and begin driving back to our house, getting more afraid with each mile that ticks by. How were we awake for so long and none of us had any clue about what happened? 18 drives, while 46 and 123 go through our phone. No activity on social media, but one of our accounts had been drained dry. What did we do in the missing time? Holy shit. What the? All of us fall silent as we pull onto our street. Dozens of police cars clog the cul-de-sac where our home is, their flashing lights intermittently illuminating the neighborhood. We are in a daze as we get out of the car and realize what the fuss is all about. The glass spheres surrounding the bulbs and the street lamps lining up our street have all been replaced by the decapitated heads of our neighbors. Our knees tremble as we stare at the heads with the bright light beaming out the holes where their eyes should be. Blood drips down their severed necks and drops down on asphalt. Sir? I feel a flashlight lighting up my face. You need to step back. This is an active crime scene. I live here. We find ourselves mumbling. We stagger back. Sir, are you okay? Darkness overwhelms us once again. Another debilitating headache. Another strange bed. Another missing chunk of time. We are freaking out now. The panic of over 1,000 voices further adding to the pain. It doesn't take us long to figure out what happened this time, though. It's the first notification that pops up on the phone. An article from a major national newspaper. They're calling it a massacre. A terrorist attack. More than 20 police officers brutally murdered after showing up to the scene of a horrific ritualistic murder. Eyewitnesses describe a blur smashing through the police officers, ripping them apart while screaming like an animal. Our knuckles are bruised, our fingers wrinkled like they have been in water for too long. Or blood. Our headache increases in intensity. We don't know what happened. Don't know what's causing this. Maybe we'd been playing with fire when we were jumping across dimensions and ended up inviting something dangerous into our head, into our reality. We just don't know, because we can't sense anything. We don't know what we're going to do next, who we're going to kill. We feel powerless, just like those who would try to stop us. I think I'm just going to kill myself again. I hope it works for good this time.